Madam, I regret to have to inform you that a report has been received from the War Office. Private William Love, 22nd Northumberland Fusiliers, was posted as missing between the 11th and 14th of April 1918. I'm Martin Love, 53, and William was my great uncle. He was my grandfather's second brother. Well, William was born in Windhill on Stubbing Way, which no longer exists. The road was demolished, or the houses were demolished. There are some flats on the site there now. And in his childhood, his father, my great-grandfather, and the rest of the family seemed to move backwards and forwards between Windhill and Saltaire quite a few times during William's childhood. But they lived at a number of houses in Saltaire village, 31 Helen Street, 5 Whitlam Street, and eventually 26 Shirley Street. He was certainly in the forces by 1916, because we know from the letter that was sent to them by the parish priest to sort of guarantee that Nellie was his next of kin. And the only other thing we know that he did come home on leave in 1917, because of one of the letters tells us that, from one of his former comrades, who said that his last letter from Bill was in 1917. And that's the only letter or anything that we've got that refers to him as Bill. So we can only assume he was known to his mates in the army as Bill, but Nellie always referred to him as William. I can remember Nellie as an old lady. When I was a young child, she died when I was about 12. She was an elderly lady whose sight was going, and that was one thing I can remember about it. Her sight gradually got worse and worse. She died when she was 83, which was quite a good age in those days. It was 1975. She passed away. But she always had this thing that was missing in her life, and it was only when my dad started talking about her, because he'd grown up on the same street that she lived on, and he started telling me the stories of that she was saving up her holidays every year, because they only got about a week's holiday each year, and she'd save that up for 2 or 3 years to then go travelling around Europe to look for William. She was going to mental hospitals, seeing if she could find him there, if he'd lost his memory, checking cemeteries as well, visiting local people, but there wouldn't have been any civilians around the areas where the fighting was anyway. They'd have all moved, but this desperate search for him, because he'd never been posted as dead, and she wasn't prepared to accept that he'd died, and she kept on looking for him. She never locked her door at night or when she went out, until we think about the Second World War, from what my dad was telling me, just in case he came home, which was really, really tragic. And the most tragic thing was that when she was granted a war widow's pension, she was worried that if he came back, the government would want it back. So she just put it in the post office, and she was still doing that when she was 83, when she died. And she never had 2 halfpennies to rub together. She was always a poor old lady, as I can remember, in a small, dark, dingy little house that she lived in. And that money could have made a difference to her. She worked all her life until she retired, but she had all this money stashed away that she never touched, because she thought he might come home and they might ask for it back. It's really tragic. you know, she had this fixation about, which was totally understandable, but for people who were a little bit more detached from it, you know, that they'd heard it all before and they didn't want to go through it all again. But you know, it was the major defining thing in her life, really, was that she'd been widowed so young, and that she never really knew. If somebody could have told her that, yeah, that he was dead, then I think that she may have been able to draw a line under it. But the fact that she went to her grave with him still missing, you know, was still just such a major thing in her life.